Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and first of all, my apologies for this rather sad turn of events. I accidentally casted the same game twice. That is not good. And it's a bit embarrassing, but thankfully only after 300 episodes. I suppose it's bound to happen when sort of games get into a mix. And of course I also apologize for the lateness because, well, I bloody well discovered it too late. So, having to quickly draw through all the old games, having sort of figured, well, this one is alright, and I'm going to sort of have to apologize for those who don't like it. Yes, it is one of my own, but it's sort of, again, I have to sort of have a sort of level of quality, and well, I've already cast most roles, and I might have a few of my own, which are old and sort of hanging about. So there we go. ImperialDane, yes indeed, fighting for the 2nd Panzer Division, going up against the Rommelreturns. Again, I have faced involved before, and that was on Angerville, so you can't say I haven't casted this one before. No. But he is fighting right here, and of course playing as the Americans again. I don't quite get the idea why it's Rommel's Rebirth, and he's fighting as the Americans. But here he is, fighting for the 1st Infantry Division. And I'll try to keep this sort of slightly fast, slightly speedy. No mid-game analysis, yes, I apologize, but that's rather because, well, I'm already going to be staying up quite late, and it's going to be really, really late before this even get going, so I have to rather keep things alright, unless I actually don't want any sleep, and you want a really, really tired Dane tomorrow. But he's going rather aggressive outright fact here, and that's rather one of the reasons I thought this game was interesting, you know. We are seeing a 4-engineer start, and we are going to see one of my attempts at certainly countering it, which is probably one of it, but certainly perhaps not the one everyone favors. There my quarters is up though, and going for the false kindness, of course, at this stage, you don't really know if there's a 4-engineer start, and of course, trouble is, how the bloody hell do you find out? It's not really something that can easily be spotted if your opponent is actually pretty good at the whole deception business, because then again, he'll take everything else pretty much, before he then suddenly standing before you with lots of engineers, and you're rather, oh bother. So that of course is a very vital point, and of course a bit of a philosophical problem. How do you spot an American who's gone for 4 engineer teams right off the bat? And of course the trick is to sort of spot if he's really having a lot of territory somehow, and of course then you must sort of not go for will. He's gone for 4 engineers, damn it. But Rommel's Rebirth, yes indeed. Rommel, a good German officer of the highly tactical kind. He was perhaps not the greatest strategist, but he was certainly a very good tactician. He had fought in World War I, where he did quite well in the Southern Alps against the Italians, who, yes, back then were actually fighting against the Germans, although they had, before the war, pledged themselves to fight for the Germans. So yes indeed, rule of thumb, never trust an Italian, and thus I alienate all of my Italian viewers. No, not really, I'm just kidding about, you know. But it is a bit fun, because usually you get all the it's the French who usually get all the harsh words, and they didn't do too bad. They were just old and stuffy. But of course at this stage again, I'm not really sure what's going on. I have no idea. Though I hopefully ought to be getting the sort of hint that, you know, perhaps this chap is going for the sort of 4-engineer business. Again, that's sort of the question. How do you know? How do you see? But there we go, spotting a few engineers, opening up on them with the false gunners, forcing away the engineers there. And of course also noting something here. And I suspect this is about the time that I rather suspect. Yes, he's gone for 4 engineers, and of course there's one thing that can rather hint you at it, and of course what's that? No riflemen. I mean, if he's going for 4 engineers, his riflemen will in fact be somewhat delayed. And that's rather, in this case, actually what I believe I went for. Of course, this game is actually somewhat old. And this was actually a game I had marked up because I had thought something was a bit odd during the game. And of course, before sending it off to Rick, just in case, you know, he was off to some sort of dirty business. As I mean, you get the suspicion once in a while. You, of course, check the replay yourself first. And sometimes, you know, you notice, oh, wait, there's a perfectly good reason for that. So again, you mean, of course, that's not to accuse him. I mean, he's alright, in fact. No wrong things there. But of course, perhaps as a rule of thumb to other people, you know, when you're about thinking, oh wait, he cheated, you know, casually think, well, did he actually cheat? Let me just check that replay thoroughly. But of course, laying down some barbed wire here, so this position can't really be assaulted. And of course, might be getting further false grenadiers now. But now 3 false grenadier teams rather close up to each other. Rather than coming under fire, lots of false grenadiers. 2nd Panzer Division with its false grenadiers, yes indeed. Not really sticking together there in the larger picture, but there we go. taking up position here in the cafes, and as you can find down here, from numerous angles. Of course, that's rather the best point you can, you know, hitting them from as many angles as possible, making it very difficult for them. Of course, pulling back behind the cafe. Volksgrenadiers moving in. Engineers also moving in, some retreating. Moving out there, lots of danger, lots of fire, shooting. Engineers moving in, of course, using the advantage that 4 years can get you, and that, of course, is flamethrowers early up, and there we go. Volksgrenadiers just bursting into flames. Oh, the horror, oh, the inhumanity. Really a nasty moment. That, of course, I do manage to force the engineers away, but really notice, I mean, he suffered nothing. I mean, I've lost lots of Volksgrenadiers. I pretty much think I lost about 9 Volksgrenadiers there. What did he lose? 2 engineers. I mean, again, that's one of the more unfortunate things, but that really is also one of the strengths of 4 years, and of course, rather, the strength of a flamethrower. It can really do massive damage, and of course that's also the problem there in the Volksgrenadiers. They can just move in a lot of targets, and of course your troops are in heavy cover because you need it, and then, oh dear, all my troops have combusted. Sadly, not spontaneously. So again, reinforcing, of course, using the advantage that, well, that is slightly normal. Of course, it's not the usual sort of strategy that I would go for, and otherwise, you know, 4 Volksgrenadier teams. But, you know, in this case, I rather figure it's going to give me the advantage against all those engineers. It's going to allow me to shoot them down, of course, allow me to press onwards. And, of course, quickly seize territory as well. So a bit of engagement here, Riflemen hanging about in the church, and, of course, that's a bit of a mistake here by Rommel's Rebirth, you know, hanging about in their church. And, again, there's not a lot of windows for him to do it. And, of course, I decided to return the favour, you know, get a bloody flamethrower of my own while shooting these engineers trying to lay down a mine. So there we go, Rifleman pulling away, and so in fact running right in front of all of this. That's one of the less good ideas, I'll certainly agree with that. Catching on fire, getting shot up, that's less good, but they do manage to get out of there. At the same time, we are seeing a rather early medic station up. I mean, apparently Rommel's Rebirth does have a bit of, you know, reading up on all that, and now laying down lots of mines again. That's one of these sort of hidden advantages, besides the sort of having flamethrower engineers appear from every angle, and again, they are dangerous, but it's also the fact that he can get a lot of munitions early on, and of course used to lay down mines. And we'll be seeing a lot of mines from him later on. And we'll be seeing some very terrible mines sweeping from me later on. Medics coming under fire, shot in the back. I'm having none of that business. In this case, I'm rather using a little trick here. Attacking the ground with your pioneer team to sort of lure about any mines, sort of set them off, because I know there's mines here. Trouble is finding them specifically. And of course some players use it on spots where they rather suspect, and I sort of think, well, then nothing happened, and well, yeah, go figure. I mean, you have to be rather specific where you hit the flamethrower. But the pioneers are still alive, that's what counts. Sandbags going down here. Americans getting ready for another assault, hanging about close to that medic station. No doctrinal choice as of yet. Krieg barracks going up. Volksgrenadiers lining up as well here. Sandbags ready. Riflemen moving in. Right in the middle of everything. Riflemen down. And there we go. Terror and inspired assault, increasing the rate of fire of the Volksgrenadiers and the damage. Another down. Another down. Moving forwards. Forwards, men now. Sadly, you never hear the actual propaganda here in the replays, because that's one of the better parts of actually using it. Encouraging them to greater feats of valor, but there we go, really opening up on the rifleman and medic down as well. No efforts are spared, and now the Americans really are on the run. And of course they open up on that medic station with all fervor, all glee, and the Americans meanwhile of course do the clever thing. He doesn't move in here or into all of these Volksgrenadiers, he attacks from another angle. Good move there, Rommel's Rebirth, you know, attacking from the other angle, flanking about. Of course, at the same time, I'm going for the cutoff point there. Pack 38 on the way. Of course, again, I'm sort of expecting the armored stuff. And medic station is down. That's certainly sorted that out. Sadly, no medic bunker for me again. I really ought to have gone for that again. You know, 4 Volksgrenadier teams. Well, that usually tends to be a pretty good candidate for a medic bunker. So of course, don't make the same mistake I did. Volksgrenadier catching on fire, running into the hedge, and well, being scorched right there. So of course I'm suddenly switched, and again that's one of them with again the bits where attacking elsewhere where your opponent is not. Of course, and I'm forced to actually move onto the offensive. Of course, with Volksgrenadiers, that's a bit of a problem there. Not exactly the best troops. Of course, with inspired assault, you can get a bit more out of them, but again, you know, you have to be a bit careful. Moving in there, mines laid down by Rommel's Rebirth in advance. Again, good move. Engineers getting fired upon. And False Grenadiers in cover, of course, getting scorched. Engineers flanking in. False Grenadiers on fire. Veterans run for this engineer. Will they get False Grenadiers get him? No, they... Wait, come on. Come on, men. No. And Rückzug instead. And of course, currently I've thus been forced completely off the field. Except some from Pioneers here laying down their own mines. And some other Pioneers down here. But of course, swiftly remounting for a counter-attack with Grenadiers leading it. Some slightly more stout Panzer Grenadiers, I suppose you could call them, of the 2nd Panzer Division. Which did fight normally first against the British, but was quickly pulled over to support the 352nd. I believe it was largely equipped with Panzer IVs of varying age. So it had some older ones, newer ones, slightly all sorts of things. Of course, later by the war, the Panther would actually be the sort of more standard tank. Because, well, I'm not entirely sure, but I suppose mostly because production was shifted towards it much more, and plus the fact that some of the Panzer IV production had to be used for Sturmgeschütz, like the Stug 4. So that rather meant that by the war there were more Panthers than there were Panzer IVs and more mines. I mean, really aggressive mining. That's good. Oh dear, more mines. Of course, it's not good for me. It's not good for my men, but you know, for him, it's bloody great. And there we go, another mine. Mines everywhere. It's a mine bonanza. Half-track on the way. Of course, signifying the armoured battalion. Of course, a Panzer Grenadier Division, unless it was the Panzerlehr or the 21st Panzer Division, would actually only have one battalion equipped with half-tracks. Otherwise, it would be trucks. And of course, as the war passed on, it would be bikes or basically nothing. They'd be forced to move on their feet. And there we go, swift counter-attack. Engineers down, almost down with the riflemen as well. Grenadiers, False Grenadiers streaming in. Ever lovely sight that. Meanwhile, we are seeing riflemen moving about here, retaking what they can there. Certainly quite a lot of shifting. I was certainly quite nervous about this match. I was certainly under quite a lot of pressure, and I really dislike going up against 4 engineers. That's much for certain, but now I get really noticed the huge amount of mines, and of course he's getting quite a bit of munitions, you know, 50 per minute, not second. That would be insane. But again, that rather allows him to lay down a lot of mines. And again, there we go, more mines, and of course swiftly counter-attacking, moving in the half-track with the False Grenadiers and Grenadiers. Pioneers, lots of ears. Die Volksgrenadiere, die Pioniere, die Schützenpanzerwagen. And another mine goes off again. Really a lot of mines. Again, that's what you want. If you really have the advantage as the Americans, and really that's where he's doing the clever thing. What he's perhaps not doing so cleverly is, of course, pushing the advantage in terms of armor. He's not getting any armored vehicles when he's Germans. That's what most people actually do once they get the advantage with 4 ES. You know, they go for tanks. Instead, he's going for something else. He's really solidifying his infantry hold. You know, BARs, lots of other things rather than going in here. And of course, barbed wire forcing them into here. Now we are seeing a lot of engineers, but they're running into the half-track, and it's like machine gun Pioneers with flamethrowers going out against the engineers. Riflemen running all the way through that. Engineers are forced away from the center. And we are not seeing any doctrinal choices from Rommel's Rebirth 12 minutes into the game, and of course, 4 command points. Not good at all. Riflemen being forced away. More mines hit. Again, lots of mines. It's unbelievable with all those mines. I really couldn't believe it either. Though my men clearly could. And they weren't happy. And then swiftly mounting a counterattack, of course. Of course, the half-track in this case actually provides me a small advantage, of course, since it allows me to reinforce at the front. Riflemen under fire from every angle. Of course, an inspired sword here could do some damage. But no, moving in from another flank. Attacking on a larger scale, that is good. Of course, you could have used more riflemen. But no, perhaps the rest are slightly worse off. In fact, one team has been forced away, being behind only one team to deal with all this. And I've still yet to get a medic bunker. Grenades getting lobbed at the riflemen. Oh, wait. Oh, I pressed space. Of course, that is a nice thing. Of course, if you want to go sort of like a thing. Oh, sticky bomb, right. Or, for example, unit trained space. Just don't do it while casting a game. And there we go. Fine, your rifleman team down. I believe he only had 3, but again, he sort of makes up with all those flamethrowers again. Flamethrowers can be quite nasty if they sneak in. And now he has gone for airborne, rather interestingly enough. Not the usual combination you see with something like this, but you know, it's not a bad approach. And using them to attack down here in the south, interestingly enough as well. Now moving in through here. Small assault force, lots of engineers, some of them veteran, 11 kills with those engineers. And again, also note, here's a funny thing. Engineers actually gain veterancy through their mines. It also happened with riflemen, they down mines. They get veterancy. It's a fun little fact most people actually don't know, but it can be used. And grenade getting locked with the rifleman and kills one guy. Absolutely spectacular. Rifleman taking losses, being forced away. Sturm Armory going up while the Pioneers, others hanging about. Going for the slightly more armoured approach. More vehicles, of course, deciding, well, if he's not going to it, well, I might as well. Because playing along to his tunes is not going to help me in the long run. I mean, basically, you don't want to be playing the game your opponent is playing, because then he's going to be having the advantage because he did it first. Usually. So, I mean, the better trick is to sort of try and push it into something where he perhaps doesn't have quite the strength. And, of course, where you can play it more alongside to your tempo. And we are seeing movements in the north. Sturm Armory is up, Pioneers doing nothing. And Airborne, interesting enough, are hiding over here. Engineers under quite a bit of fire, but again, he's not moving in through here to sort of assist that. In fact, he's moving in here to sort of harass and do damage elsewhere. I mean, again, not a bad move. And hitting more mines, but going for the cutoff point, and that's what matters. And engineers are forced away. Another grenade, but that's a bit too late. Again, lots and lots and lots of mines. Engineer down. Medics moving in. Oh, so close to those mines. Oh dear, be careful. Pioneers moving in. And there we go. Destroyed engine. That's pretty terrible. Of course, using Pioneers to command the half-track is a good move. Volksgrenadiers and Riflemen facing off against there. Most of my forces are here. And there we are seeing an American counterattack. Mine hit again by the Volksgrenadiers. Flamethrowers moving in. Half-track quickly remanned. Opening up with the machine gun grenades getting locked. And we are seeing a strafing run. Pinning down one Volksgrenadier team, but the Grenadiers just barely avoid it. And then continue to fire away, forcing away the American forces. That was bloody close. And again, more mines. Really, it's unbelievable with all the munitions he has. Well, he's slowly starting to lose it, though. And he even has an observation post. I mean, he's really pushing it, of course. That also means he clearly knows what he wants. And again, that's not a bad idea. I'm not going to say, don't get an observation post. Just, know when to get it. Know when to get it. That's the more important bit. Then charging right at the half-track, perhaps hoping to get a sticky bomb off. And I have gone for the Kampfkraft sensor. And let's just briefly note here again, I've gotten veterancy for my half-track. It's not something you usually see, but it does give some damage protection. In fact, I do believe it here. It actually is 25. Well, it's something close. And that, of course, can mean a bit when, getting covered in sticky bombs or hit by BAR fire. So, nice little detail there. And Grenadiers lobbing at the Riflemen there. The 2nd Panzer Division fighting onwards. Riflemen down. Volksgrenadiers moving onwards. We are seeing the armored car moving forward here. The Schwere Panzerspähwagen. Basically, the Germans had sort of two armored cars. The light armored car, that was the heavy armored car. Sort of moving in squadrons. And basically, the armored cars were part of German reconnaissance doctrine, which actually didn't sort of rely on the reconnaissance units, Panzer Grenadiers. No, we actually relied on the armored cars to do all the reconnaissance. The Panzer Grenadiers that was sort of attached to that sort of unit were actually just there to actually break a hole in the enemy lines, so the armored cars could stream through. Bit of a funny detail there. And usually those Panzer Grenadiers, of course, when they weren't doing that, would actually be sort of an armored reserve, and elite unit to sort of be called upon.
Forward supply lines are broken.
And we are seeing some riflemen coming under heavy fire from the armored car. Half-track moving in. Of course, again, veterans who want for the armored car also helps there. Heavy losses for the riflemen as they try to take the point, try to take the munitions from the Krauts. But the armies are taking heavy losses, and there we go. We are seeing a veterancy 2 engineer teams. Absolutely maddening. And we are seeing more mines going down by those engineers. I mean, he loves those mines. And of course, they're now 66 munitions per minute. That's incredible. Volksgrenadiers and riflemen facing off. Veterancy 2 for these Volksgrenadiers. Armored car moving in to assist. Volksgrenadiers getting into that house. And looks like he might be getting some grenades. Yes, indeed. Lobbing at it. And another observation post ready. Heavy losses for the Volksgrenadiers, though. Absolutely. Oh, no. Getting out the wrong door. And of course, there's a tick for that. And of course, let me just briefly explain it. I mean, basically, you choose the building. You choose the unit which should be available down here. And you choose the unload or whatever button right over here, and then you click near the door you actually want to go out of. If you just right click, of course, there's no telling which door they will exit, perhaps right in front of the enemy. So right little trick there. But again, more munitions for this guy. He absolutely loves it. And a Pioneer team sadly got cut down. But pushing onwards, not letting up for one moment, 1 second. Always moving forward, streaming forwards with full grenadiers again with grenadiers. And I've yet to get a medic bunker again. That's not good on my behalf.
Jerry's waiting. Paratroopers here.
So no need to point it out in the comments. I certainly know there are some people who seem to feel very fond of doing that, you know. But there you go. Still those sandbags remain, of course, giving me a bit of protection. Of course, more sandbags, in fact, and then hitting another mine. I don't really seem to be learning here. And that's really a bad mistake. I mean, you know, if your opponent loves to mine this spot, you know, get some bleeding minesweepers. That doesn't really seem to be mine line of priorities. And there we go, huge assault moving in. Doesn't quite have the mission for the strafing run, though. That could be to my advantage. Of course, I didn't note that, but nonetheless. And catching on fire, running into a mine. That's what you call bad luck. But the half-track moves in, opening up with its machine gun, disrupting the American assault. Grenadiers and full grenadiers firing away. Losses for the Americans. And a not fully repaired half-track. There we go. Sticky bomb. Engineers moving in. Armored car also moving in. Engineers taking up position in the cafe with their flamethrower. Grenade getting locked at the engineers. Oh dear, only one man left. Rifleman suppressed, airborne, hanging about. No recoil his rifles though. More sticky bombs on the half-track. Engineer unit down. And the half-track finally goes up in fire and doom and smoke. And the airborne are also forced to retreat. Rifleman covering it, in fact, covering the strategic point. Again, he's actually invested quite a bit, you know, with those 200 manpower. So of course, he's quite keen on ensuring nothing bad happens. And the armored car hits another mine. That's just great, you know. And in this case, of course, not very keen on getting it covered in sticky bombs. I call in a forced retreat. And then I hit another mine. Yes, I hit another mine. That's... I mean, you'd probably get a very high number if you noticed, if you counted how many mines I actually hit throughout this game. It's not really encouraging, I know. And also a bit here floating resources, but again, I was a bit concerned here. Hopefully I should be spending it on something. Riflemen and full gunners engage each other. Riflemen clearly outgunned. 10 full grenadiers, veteran 2 versus 6 riflemen, only veteran 1. Of course, they do get the slightly more advantage. Oh, that one veteran bit.
The Yankees are grabbing our territory.
And barely any troops holding the line here. Pioneers need to get away. Armored car opening up, full grenadiers and grenadiers as well. Results though in a full retreat.
The Americans are capturing the sector.
Taking back that point, also moving about here. Pioneers also moving there. Really a lot of back and forth fighting right here, of course. Streaming in with riflemen, laying down as many bloody mines, of course, you can in the wake. And of course, sort of trying to counter-attack and then proceeding to run into a lot more mines. We're now getting the venerable Sturmgeschütz, getting an MG42, about damn time. Volksgunners getting into this building, got a bit of protection. Riflemen moving about, close up to those. Others pulling out. Some loss of the Volksgunners, and we are seeing a grenade. 2 grenades running into that building. Oh dear, the entire Volksgrenadier team was slaughtered in seconds. Oh dear, that was a cruel fate. And that in fact means I've only still lost one Volksgrenadier team in the whole that game. That's pretty impressive, I suppose. Armored car pulling away. This is not looking good, of course, just trying to sort of keep them baited until they can get that MG42 up to cover the retreat. And there we go, MG42 is ready. Schweres Maschinengewehr 42. Opening up on the riflemen, suppressing them. There we go. And the Pack 38 joining in because, well, he wants to as well. There's not really been much use for him as much so far. But more grenadiers getting ready. Pioneers moving southwards. Mines being laid down by the engineers right there. And of course, in this case, I'm rather hoping on the King Tiger to give me the extra boost I need, I suppose I would call it, to really show those Yankees who's the boss. And airborne coming under fire, and there we go. 1 shot, 1 kill. Full grenadiers moving in to support, perhaps also some grenadiers, that would be lovely. And the airborne are on the run, and rather here, of course, we are sort of seeing one major problem of his plan. He, of course, wants to, as well, he does not want to lose the Yankees, so he's trying to sort of keep them baited until they can get that MG42 up to cover the retreat. And there we go, MG42 is ready. Schweres Maschinengewehr 42. Opening up on the riflemen, suppressing them. There we go. And the airborne are on the run, and rather here, of course, we are sort of seeing one major problem of his plan. he doesn't quite have any real anti-tank assets. I mean, as you might have noticed, he doesn't have recoilless rifles. All he has really are sticky bombs, and of course, that's going to be a bit of a problem getting off on those that Sturmgeschütz with all that infantry in support. That's sort of the thing that can end up very badly. MP40s for the Volksgrenadiers, though, decided that might help at this stage of the fight, and so far he hasn't actually been able to remine this area. Looks like he is airdropping in an anti-tank gun, though. And again, that's rather one of the advantages of the airborne doctrine. It does possess a certain unique flexibility, of course, allowing you to quickly sort of fill out any gaps, in particular in the anti-tank assets, if you need that. Grenade on the MG42, and one man down. Rifleman, though, taking heavy losses. Forced away, only one man alive. Another sneaking through here in the north. And we are seeing further fighting here. Engineers moving in, airborne ready as well. Could be dropping some grenades. But apparently not. We are not hearing any strafing runs, but currently not looking good for me. He is currently holding most of the territory and also slightly most of the victory points soon. Attack moving in here, Grenadiers, Volksgrenadiers, and we are seeing a fire up by the airborne. They're clearly going in for the MG42. Of course, note as soon as they fire up, they do actually not suffer suppression. Of course, that means the MG42 gets more accurate. And another grenade, and the MG42 barely dodges it. Getting a mortar to sort of provide some more cover fire. Make it a bit difficult and more dangerous for him to just be standing still and hoping to flank. More riflemen moving in, and you know, he hasn't really moved beyond that, but he does have supply at veterancy upgrade number 2. That's good. Helps with veterancy, of course, also helps with upkeep. Charging in, Volksgrenadiers is getting suppressed after hitting a mine, and we are seeing a strafing run doing, oh dear, pinning down. That will be a good moment to attack. And in fact, the attack is moving in. Engineers laying down mines there, but not really moving in. That's... In fact, he seems to have not followed up on the sort of advantage he could have gained here. That's quite the mistake, and of course now my mortar can immediately begin firing on this position. Meanwhile, we are seeing Volksgrenadiers with inspired assault going on here. Grenade lobbed, and the Volksgrenadiers keep fighting. And we are seeing a flamethrower engineer sneaking in, but taking losses, mortar rounds flying there, and the riflemen were in fact completely slaughtered by the inspired assault Volksgrenadiers. I mean, it can really make a difference. Of course, you have to be careful because you can always also make the difference for your opponent when he slaughters your troops. But the mortar keeps firing, albeit one of its members were turned into a crispy thing. But still, he is holding most of the territory, although the price he is paying to do so is quite high. And airborne are ready as well again. Oh dear. And now securing a Nebelwerfer. The Nebelwerfer, the fog thrower, a smoke thrower. The Americans actually had sort of the same thing. It was called the chemical weapons something. And early on, the Nebelwerfer was actually sort of a large mortar, but that was later scrapped. And then, of course, the Germans went for the rocket artillery. Had quite a few variants. And mines are discovered, but at the same time, riflemen with BARs are as well discovered. That was less opportune. Grenades getting up. MG42 barely gets out of there. The Yanks are quite on the move, and of course attacking from numerous angles again and again. Not just being content on being attacking from one angle, of course not bashing his head into a wall. That's good. Of course, it could also be good if he actually called in perhaps some heavy machine guns or mortars, you know, from their airdrop, and perhaps went in for a slightly larger scale assault.
The enemy advances. Puma.
But he is moving, he's not giving up. And laying down mines again. That ought to be obvious by now. Volksgrenadiers is trying to cover this point here just in case someone decides to sneak in, and rather realize they're facing more than they had bargained for. Armor car moving northwards. Sturmgeschütz also ready to move into support. And a mine hits again. Absolutely amazing. And we are seeing propaganda war being used somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure where. Oh wait, that was up there to actually protect that victory point, I think. Riflemen taking some losses. All seems to be cooling down a bit. ever so slightly. Now going for a weapon support center. He's not going to push for any sort of armor, he feels like. No, instead he's going for a weapon support center. That's a bit odd. He seems to be slowly going out of steam. And rather here, that's actually where I thought, because, you know, how could he? Because, well, there we go. He moves in and lobs a grenade. But of course, I mean, I left my pioneers there to sort of leave the note that, oh wait, I'm laying down a mine there. Of course, again, that's something you have to be careful about. You know, once you laid down the mine, quickly move the chaps who've done it. Otherwise, of course, you're going to be signaling, oh wait, there's a mine here. Kindly blow it up. Armored car moving in, but not feeling too lucky and not too brave either. Anti-tank gun covering this area, getting ready for another attack. And let's just speed this up a bit. Yes, my apologies. And we do hear the howling of the Nebelwerfer singing a dirge to the Americans. And he's actually got a plan, and that's rather why I'm spinning this, of course, because it's going to take some time. Well, of course, I'm sort of worried about to do. Getting ready for the assault, and of course, he's doing something that could be clever. He's going to be attacking my base. Only light fighting, of course, going on here. Sniper about. Seeing all of my troops nicely lined up here, ready for the assault. Actually, it's time to go look at him. And I'm calling in smoke. I'm actually getting ready to attack this point. Charge in, no matter what. With a minesweeper, of course, to ensure I don't hit any mines. I'm really doing this properly. I'm doing this the German way. And then a strafing run clears out a false grenadier team. Almost a grenadier team, and pins down another team. And the pioneers spot the sniper. And meanwhile, we are seeing here. And of course, he's probably doing this as well to sort of clear up so he doesn't actually see, or so I don't see his entire force as he moves in. Of course, the engineers get blasted to bits and don't actually make it out. Then that's a bit sad, since those were actually the veterans too. And of course, noticing there's nothing here, I actually move up with the rest of my force. But he continues unabated. 3 rifleman teams, an airborne team with recoilless rifles, and the anti-tank gun. He's really going to attack my base. He's going to be doing some damage. Pioneers forced away, but the medic station is still a target.
Losing ground out there.
And there we go, anti-tank guns opening up. Airborne flanking. He, of course, is waiting for that thing to get knocked out. And, oh dear, the end for his streams of German space destruction are at an end. Königstiger is ready. Moving in to support the 2nd Panzer Division. Equipped with the, I believe it's the Porsche turret, which was slightly more rounded, but it was actually chained because it's had actually a sort of shot trap right there, which actually meant if it was hit around there, it would actually deflected right into the tank, which was actually a bit of a problem. Moving forward with the King Tiger armor coming in to flank a bit. Anti-tank, and apparently seems a bit unsure what to do. And of course, things are falling apart now. More Nebelwerfer fire. Sticky bomb on the armored car.
Weapon crew reporting casualties.
Anti-tank gun cleared out. Rifleman down. And of course, the thing was, he could actually have moved in through here and then attack through there. Of course, completely avoiding the machine gun bunker. But sadly, he waited about a bit too much. But then again, he would just, of course, run into the King Tiger. But again, he could have used the buildings. He could have actually sort of weaved in between them and, of course, gotten close to the King Tiger. But that is all ancient history now. Veteran C3, Grenadiers moving in. Rifleman getting blasted to bits. Rifleman going in for that King's, the armor car. And the Rifleman getting shot up by the King Tiger. Grenadiers. And an entire Rifleman team is down in a most tragic fashion. Airborne sneaking about here. Airborne continuing here. Lots of airborne from him, in fact. And not so many riflemen anymore. Plus he does have that sniper, though, still alive. Forcing my MG4 to win. Oh, clearing out the mortar team. But he's still got fight in him. Sturmgeschützsphere moving in against those airborne, forcing them away. Volksgrenadiers following up.
Our supply lines are being threatened.
And of course at this stage rather discovering that, oh wait, he has an observation post. The airborne continue, they are not to be dissuaded. Nor is the Nebelwerfer.
Supply lines are broken.
King Tiger on the move. Grenadiers and airborne facing off against each other. Grenades getting exchanged. And being able to dodge it. Sturmgeschütz moving in to support as well. Bit of damage there.
Losing ground out there.
All a bit quiet, all a bit quiet. And airborne running straight into Stug 4. Grenadiers also providing a bit of fire support. While the King Tiger is seen in the distance, moving in against something else. Let's go have a look, actually. Some riflemen who were sneaking off on a secret mission. There's also a bike now actually hanging about to help with that sniper. And we are seeing a bit of fighting here against some Grenadiers, but the Grenadiers were forced away. And Sniper actually reveals himself there. That of course means the bike's going there as well. Grenadiers with LMG facing off, but simply too many riflemen. And here we are seeing a Sturmgeschütz facing off against some airborne, shooting them up and forcing them away. Sniper down, I repeat, sniper down. And of course now they will continue for the last airborne up there. Small, hastily assembled combat group. While airborne and riflemen moving against now the veterancy free Sturmgeschütz protecting against recoilless rifles and sticky bombs with those armored skirts. Although it was originally only intended to protect against anti-tank rifles. There we go, sticky bomb. And actually ends up immobilizing the Sturmgeschütz, but it also ends up crushing the riflemen as they run under it. But some airborne are still left, and there we go, Inspired Assault, Volksgrenadiers, veterancy free, firing away with increased speed to save the Sturmgeschütz. Airborne, absolutely exhausted. Yet somehow the Volksgrenadiers are actually not looking like they're firing any faster. Bit sad. And now they're, well, done being inspired. And the Sturmgeschütz is down. The Volksgrenadiers just can't seem to do it fast enough. They keep firing, but nothing seems to be happening. And the King Tiger is all in his own. And there we go, one Volksgrenadier down, veterancy free versus only 2 veterancy 1 airborne. That's, and they just keep doing it, and the Volksgrenadiers just can't seem to kill them.
Our fuel point is being taken by the enemy.
Fun little detail that, and there we go, grenade on the Volksgrenadiers, killing one more, forcing the last 2 soon away, while other assets are moving in to put a stop to that, including an armored car,
territory out of supply.
and hitting a mine on the retreat. And of course, remember when using the LMG-42, stand still. Stand still, damn you.
Fighter bomber support is circling for orders.
Now getting fighter bombers and
losing a victory point. We are
looking very grim, lots of sandbags, and there we go, game over. Rommel's Rebirth and the 4th Infantry Division pulling away in the face of the 2nd Panzer Division. There we go. Again, my apologies. I do hope you appreciate all the work I'm trying to put into, of course, get another one up as soon as possible. And of course, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not subscribe to your friends, and if you didn't, well, why not send in a replay of your own. This is ImperialDane saying cheers.